The ships came on a Tuesday morning. Cole was drinking coffee on his apartment balcony when the sky turned dark. Not dark like clouds or storms. Dark like something had blocked out the sun itself. He looked up and saw metal. Miles and miles of metal hanging in the sky, so large that his mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. The had arrived. Within 6 hours, every television, every phone, every screen on Earth showed the same message. A creature appeared on the broadcast. It stood 8 feet tall with skin like polished obsidian. 4 eyes glowed pale yellow above a mouth full of needle-thin teeth. Bone-like armor grew directly from its body, covering its chest and shoulders. It was beautiful in the way that a sword is beautiful, deadly and cold. "We are the Empire," the creature said. Its voice was calm, almost bored. "Your world has been claimed. You will provide tribute. 10,000 of your kind will serve the Empire. You have 3 rotations of your planet to select them. Resist, and we will select them ourselves, along with 10 million more." The broadcast ended. The world went mad for those 3 days. Some people rioted, some prayed. Governments held emergency meetings that solved nothing. The ships hung in the sky like patient gods waiting. In the end, volunteers came forward. Some were soldiers who thought they could fight from within. Some were scientists hopping to learn. Some were simply people who had nothing left to lose. Was none of these things. He was 34 years old. He had served as a combat medic in 3 different wars. He had held dying men in his arms and promised them they would see home again, knowing he was lying. He had come back from those wars with a body that still worked and a mind that never quite healed. He lived alone. He worked at a veterans' hospital, helping others carry the same invisible wounds he carried. When the volunteer stations opened, he saw a young man standing in line. The man was maybe 22, 23 at most. His hands were shaking. A woman stood next to him, crying quietly, her belly swollen with pregnancy. Watched them for a long moment, then he walked over. "Hey," he said to the young man, "what's your name?" "David," the man answered. His voice was barely a whisper. "You got a kid coming, David." The young man nodded. Tears were running down his face now. "I have to go. My father is sick. My mother can't work. If I go, the government will take care of my family," they promised. Looked at the pregnant woman. She was trying so hard to be brave, failing. "What if you didn't have to go?" asked. David stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'll take your place. They need 10,000 people. They don't care which 10,000. I don't understand. Why would you do that?" Thought about the question. He thought about his empty apartment, his nightmares, the way he woke up some mornings and had to convince himself to keep living. "Because you have something to live for," he said simply, "and I have something to die for." He left David with his wife and walked to the front of the line. 2 days later, stood in a massive processing center with thousands of other humans. Soldiers moved among them like wolves walking through sheep. They were cataloging, sorting, deciding who would be sent where. The processing center was cold, and the humans were stripped of their belongings, given simple uniforms and marked with numbers on their wrists. Received the number 7441. He was no longer a man with a name. He was cargo. Crown Prince arrived on the 3rd day. Knew he was important before anyone said a word. The other moved differently around him. They bowed their heads. They stepped aside. The prince walked like he owned not just the room but the entire universe around it. Was tall even for his kind, nearly 9 feet of obsidian skin and bone armor. A crown of actual bone grew from his skull, marking his royal blood. His 4 eyes scanned the rows of humans with the interest of a man examining insects. "These are the creatures?" he asked his advisor. His voice dripped with disappointment. "Yes, Your Highness, the humans." Walked down the rows. Humans shrank away from him as he passed. Did not shrink. He simply stood there, hands at his sides, eyes forward. The prince stopped in front of him. "This one does not shake," observed. "No, Your Highness." "Is it stupid? Does it not understand what is happening?" The advisor checked a data tablet. He was a soldier of some kind, a healer for wounded warriors. Perhaps he is simply accustomed to difficult situations. Leaned closer too. His 4 eyes studied the human's face, looked back at him without expression. He had seen worse things than this alien prince. He had held friends as they bled out in the mud. He had told mothers that their sons were never coming home. This creature was frightening, yes, but fear was just another feeling and had learned long ago how to keep feeling separate from doing. "What is your name, small thing?" asked. "Cole." "And you do not fear me, Cole?" Consider the question carefully. "I fear you," he admitted. "I just don't let it control me." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "How strange. Your kind has no armor, no claws, no venom. You are soft and small and weak. By every measure, you are among the lowest creatures in the galaxy, and yet this one speaks to me as if we are equals." He turned to his advisor. "Note this one. I'm curious to see how long his courage lasts when true pain finds him." The prince walked away, watched him go and said nothing. That night, packed into a transport ship with hundreds of other humans, sat in the corner and closed his eyes. Around him, people cried, people prayed. People held each other and whispered words of comfort that no one believed. Thought about David and his pregnant wife. He hoped they were safe. He hoped the baby would be born healthy. He hoped that some good would come from whatever was about to happen to him. He knew, with the certainty of a man who had seen death many times, that he was probably not going to survive this. They saw humans as tools to be used and thrown away. Whatever waited for them at the end of this journey, it would not be kind. But had made a choice. He had traded his life for a young man's future, and whatever came next, he would face it the same way he had faced everything else. One breath at a time. The transport ship's engines hummed to life. The stars began to move outside the tiny windows. Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the darkness. Watched it disappear. "Goodbye," he whispered. Then he closed his eyes and waited for whatever came next. The journey took 11 days. Learned many things during those 11 days. He learned that the Empire controlled 11 star systems. He learned that humans were not the first species to be conquered and would not be the last. He learned that the strong were sent to the mines, where they would dig precious metals from dead worlds until their bodies gave out. The weak were sent to the refineries, where toxic chemicals would eat them alive within months. He also learned about the proving. A young human named Sarah told him about it. She had been a scientist before the taking, and she had managed to access some of the ship's data systems. "It's a tradition," she explained. "Entertainment for the nobles. They throw new tributes into fighting pits. If you survive 3 rounds, you earn better treatment, better food, easier work." "And if you don't survive?" asked. Sarah's face said everything. The ship arrived at Eth Station on the 12th day, had never seen anything like it. The station was larger than some cities, a massive ring of metal and light spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Ships came and went like insects around a hive. The humans were herded off the transport like cattle. Guards pushed them through long corridors of metal. Some humans stumbled, some fell. Those who fell were kicked until they got up or didn't. Helped an old man to his feet after a guard knocked him down. The guard snarled something in the language and raised its weapon, looked at the guard without flinching. After a moment, the guard moved on. The processing on the station was worse than on Earth. Humans were examined by machines that scanned their bodies, measuring their strength, their health, their potential usefulness. Watched as the weak were separated from the strong and led away through different doors. He never saw most of them again. 3 days after arriving at the station, was selected for the proving. He was taken to a small cell beneath the arena. The walls were stone stained with old blood. Strange smells filled the air. He could hear sounds from above, cheering, screaming, the clash of combat. A guard opened his cell door and threw a piece of metal at his feet. It was a crude blade, barely sharp enough to cut bread. "You fight now," the guard said. "Die with honor, little creature." The arena was larger than expected. It was circular, maybe 100 meters across, with walls too high to climb. Sand covered the floor, dark with old stains. Above the walls, thousands of nobles sat in comfortable seats, watching with eager eyes. Saw Crown Prince in a raised box at the far end of the arena. The prince was eating something that looked like fruit. He appeared bored. A gate opened on the opposite side of the arena. The creature that came through made its blood run cold. It was called 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in natural armor the color of dried blood. Its forelimbs ended in blade-like extensions, each one longer than its arm. Its eyes were dead and black, showing no emotion at all. The crowd cheered. Looked at the tiny blade in his hand. Then he looked at the math was simple. The math was impossible. He was going to die here. The thought didn't frighten him as much as it should have. He had accepted death many times before in burning buildings and blood-soaked battlefields. Death was not a stranger to Cole. It was an old acquaintance, always waiting patiently nearby. The charged. It moved faster than anything that large should move. Its blade arms cut through the air with a sound like scissors. Threw himself to the side, feeling one of the blades pass so close to his face that it drew a thin line of blood across his cheek. He rolled to his feet and ran. The crowd laughed. They thought he was fleeing in fear, but wasn't running away. He was running toward the arena wall. He needed anything to even the odds. The caught up to him in 3 steps. A blade arm swept down toward his head, dropped flat, feeling the blade slice through the air above him. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at the creature's eyes. They made a sound like breaking glass. It staggered backward, clawing at its face. Had maybe 2 seconds. He used them. His small blade found a gap in this armor where the chest plates met the stomach. He drove it in as hard as he could. Green blood sprayed across his hands. They screamed and swung wildly. One blade arm caught in the shoulder, cutting deep into muscle and bone. Pain exploded through his body, hot and bright and overwhelming. Didn't scream. He had learned something in the wars. Pain was just information. The body was reporting damage. But the body could be wrong about what that damage meant. The body could say this is fatal when it wasn't. The body could say stop when stopping meant death. Had learned to ignore his body. He grabbed this blade arm with both hands, using the creature's own momentum against it. The arm was slick with his blood. The creature was stronger than him by far, but it was also off balance, blinded, panicking. Was none of those things. He pulled hard, stumbled forward, stepped aside and brought the edge of his hand down on the creature's throat. It was a precise blow, aimed at the soft gap beneath the jaw where no armor protected the flesh. They made a choking sound. Its black eyes went wide. It tried to swing at him again, but its movements were slow now, uncoordinated. Picked up a chunk of stone from the arena floor. He didn't remember seeing it there before. It didn't matter. He swung the stone at this throat again and again until the creature stopped moving. Silence fell over the arena. Stood over the dead, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm in rivers. His shoulder was a ruin of torn flesh. He could feel the cold edge of shock creeping into his mind, trying to shut his body down. He refused it. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his head and looked directly at Crown Prince. The prince had stopped eating. His 4 eyes were fixed on with an expression the human had never seen before on a face. It looked almost like fear. The crowd remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, a strange sound began to build. It started in the lower seats and spread upward. They were stomping their feet against the floor. A rhythm, a beat. They were applauding him. Didn't react. He simply stood there, bleeding, waiting. Guards came eventually. They took him back to his cell. A medical drone treated his shoulder with technology far beyond anything on Earth. Within hours, the wound was closed, though the scar would remain forever. That night, alone in his cell, finally allowed himself to feel the fear he had been holding back. His hands shook. His breath came in gasps. He had almost died. He had killed a creature twice his size with his bare hands and a piece of stone. He didn't feel proud. He didn't feel victorious. He felt tired. But somewhere deep inside him, beneath the fear and the exhaustion, something else stirred. Something that had been sleeping for a long time. Hope. If he could survive 1 round, maybe he could survive 2. If he could survive 2, maybe he could survive 3. Maybe he could survive this after all. Closed his eyes and dreamed of Earth, fought twice more in the proving. He won both times. The second fight was against a creature called It looked like a snake made of muscle, with 3 heads and skin that could harden into armor at will. Broke 2 of his ribs, beating it to death with a chain he had pulled from the arena wall. The third fight was against a warrior, a reptilian creature from a volcanic world. Its blood was hot enough to burn human flesh. Killed it by strangling it with his bare hands, accepting the burns as the price of victory. The scars covered his forearms like strange tattoos. After the third fight, the guards didn't take him back to his cell. They took him to the palace. Crown Prince's personal chambers were larger than any building had ever been inside. The floors were made of black stone, so polished it reflected like water. Strange plants grew in crystal containers, their leaves glowing with soft blue light. Everything spoke of wealth and power beyond human understanding. Stood in the center of the room, still wearing his blood-stained fighting clothes. Guards surrounded him, weapons ready. The prince sat on a chair that was probably worth more than his entire apartment building back on Earth. Studied him for a long time without speaking. "Leave us," the prince finally said to the guards. The guards hesitated. Now commanded. They left, and the prince were alone. "You confuse me, human," said. He stood and walked towards slowly. "I have watched every species in this galaxy fight. I have seen courage and cowardice in all their forms, but I have never seen anything quite like you." "I'm nothing special," said, "just a man trying to survive." No, you are more than that," circled him like a predator examining prey. "Your species has no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears like paper. By every measure of evolution, you should be food for other creatures. Prey, nothing more. And yet here I am. Yes, here you are, standing in my chambers, covered in the blood of 3 creatures who were each superior to you in every way. How is this possible?" Thought about the question. It was a good question. He had been asking it himself for most of his life. "Where I come from," he said slowly, "we have a saying, we are not born survivors, we become them." Tilted his head. "Explain." "Humans weren't always at the top. For most of our history, we were weak and small. Animals hunted us. Weather killed us. Disease destroyed entire populations. We had every reason to go extinct. Every other species in our situation did go extinct." "But you did not." "No, we didn't, because we learned something that other species never had to learn. We learned how to suffer, how to take pain and turn it into fuel, how to look at death and say, not yet, over and over again until death gets tired and moves on to easier targets." Was quiet for a moment. His 4 eyes blinked slowly. "You are saying that weakness made you strong." "I'm saying that never being strong forced us to find other kinds of strength. Endurance, willpower, the ability to keep going when every part of you is screaming to stop." Met the prince's gaze without flinching. "Your species was born with armor and claws. You never had to learn how to survive without them. We did." The prince returned to his chair and sat down heavily. He seemed troubled by something. "I have ruled the pit for 40 cycles," he said. "I have seen thousands of creatures fight and die. The patterns are always the same. The strong win quickly, the weak die quickly. There is no mystery in it." "But I don't fit the pattern." "No, you do not, and it disturbs me," leaned forward. "Tell me, human, what would you do to save your people?" The question caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I say, the humans from your world. The 10,000 we took, what would you do to save them?" Felt something cold in his chest, hope and fear mixed together. "Anything," he said, "everything." Smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then let us make a wager. The Ascension Festival begins in 30 rotations. During the festival, we hold the grand proving. Champions from all 11 star systems compete. 7 rounds. 7 of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. No creature has ever survived all 7 rounds." "You want me to compete?" "I want to see what happens when a human faces impossible odds. I want to understand your species, and I am willing to pay for that understanding." Stood again. "If you survive all 7 rounds, I will personally release every human tribute, all 10,000. They will be returned to Earth unharmed." His heart pounded. 10,000 lives. David and his baby. Sarah and her dreams, every person who had sacrificed themselves for their families. "And if I lose?" "If you die, Earth will double its tribute. 20,000 more humans will be taken, and they will not be treated as kindly as you have been." The room seemed to spin around. 20,000 people. Their freedom or their doom resting on his shoulders, on his broken body and tired soul. "Why?" he asked. "Why do this? What do you gain?" Walked to a window that looked out over the stars. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. "I have been alive for 200 of your years," he said quietly. "I have seen the rise and fall of empires. I have watched stars die. Nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing makes me feel alive." He turned back to, "But you, human, you make me feel something I haven't felt in decades. I don't know if it's curiosity or fear or something else entirely. I only know that I must understand it." "And if I refuse?" Then nothing changes. You will be sent to the mines with the other survivors. Your people will serve their sentences, and I will never know what a human is truly capable of. Thought about it, he thought about the 7 rounds, 7 creatures bred for killing, 7 fights against opponents who outclassed him in every physical way. He thought about dying alone on an alien world, far from everything he knew. Then he thought about David's unborn child, about the old man he had helped to his feet, about all the people who had stepped forward, willing to trade their freedom for their family's safety. "I accept," he said. Smile widened. "I thought you might. You humans are predictable in your unpredictability. You always choose the path that should lead to destruction, and somehow, impossibly, you often survive it." He waved his hand. Guards entered the room. "Take him to the training quarters. Give him whatever he needs, food, weapons, medical care." Looked at one last time. "You have 30 rotations to prepare for your death, human. Use them well." As the guards led him away, heard the prince say one more thing. "I almost hope you win, almost." The training quarters were better than anything had experienced since leaving Earth. A real bed, real food, access to weapons and training equipment, a window that looked out over the stars. He stood at that window for a long time on his first night there. Somewhere out there, Earth was still turning. People were still living their lives, unaware that their fate rested on the shoulders of one broken soldier. "No pressure," muttered to himself. Then he went to sleep. Tomorrow he would start training. He had 30 days to become something more than human. He had 30 days to learn how to fight like a dying star. The grand proving was held in the heart of Empire, an arena so large it had its own weather systems. Had spent 30 days preparing. He had studied recordings of every champion who would face him. He had trained his body until his muscles screamed and then trained some more. He had learned to use weapons, though they were designed for hands larger than his. None of it felt like enough. The day of the tournament, the arena was filled with millions of spectators. They came from all 11 star systems of the Empire. They came to see blood and death and glory. They came to watch the champions prove their worth. They came to watch the human die. Had become famous. News of his victories in the pit had spread across the Empire. A soft, small creature from a primitive world had killed 3 opponents who should have destroyed him. It was a story too strange to ignore. The betting was heavily against him. The odds of him surviving all 7 rounds were listed as 1 in 50,000. Some gambling houses didn't even bother offering odds. They simply listed his death as certain. Didn't care about odds. He stood in the preparation chamber beneath the arena, listening to the roar of the crowd above. His hands were steady. His mind was quiet. He had found that place inside himself where fear couldn't reach. The place where nothing existed except the next breath, the next step, the next moment. A guard opened the door. "It's time, human." Walked into the light. The first round was against were psychic predators. They couldn't read thoughts, but they could project fear directly into their victims' minds. Warriors who faced them often collapsed before a single blow was struck, overwhelmed by terror they couldn't explain. They stood at the center of the arena. It was humanoid but wrong somehow, too thin, too tall. Its eyes were completely white and its mouth was frozen in a permanent smile. When the signal to begin sounded, the creature reached into his mind. Fear hit him like a wave. Images flooded his brain. His worst memories rose up and the faces of men he had watched die. The sound of explosions, the smell of burning flesh. Every nightmare he had crashed into him at once. Felt his legs begin to shake. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. The fear was overwhelming, crushing, impossible to resist. So he stopped trying to resist it. He had lived with fear his entire life. Fear of death, fear of failure, fear of the things he had seen and done. Fear was an old companion and had learned that you didn't beat fear by fighting it. You beat fear by walking through it. He started moving toward Each step was agony. His brain screamed at him to run, to hide, to curl into a ball and wait for death. He ignored it. He kept walking. The smile flickered. The creature pushed harder, flooding with even more terror. But fear has limits. Fear can only hold so much power over someone who has already accepted the worst. Had accepted his death the day he volunteered. He reached and broke its neck with his bare hands. The crowd went silent. Then they erupted in noise so loud it shook the arena walls. The second round was against the Eth twins. They were genetically engineered warriors, perfect in every way. They had trained together since birth, fighting as a single unit. Their sword work was legendary. No one had ever defeated them. Faced them with a short blade in each hand, weapons too small for the task, body too slow, too weak, too human. The twins attacked in perfect coordination. One high, one low, one left, one right. They moved like dancers, their blades singing through the air. Didn't try to match their skill. He couldn't. Instead, he did what humans had always done when outmatched. He cheated. He threw sand in the first twin's eyes. He kicked dirt at the second. He used the environment. He used tricks that no honorable warrior would consider. He fought ugly and desperate and without a shred of dignity. The twins had never faced anything like it. Their perfect training hadn't prepared them for an enemy who wouldn't play by the rules. Killed the first twin with a blade to the throat. The second he strangled with her own weapon's cord, using her moment of shock at her brother's death. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't honorable. It was human. Rounds 3, 4, and 5 blurred together in memory later. A creature made of living stone, found the cracks in its body and drove metal spikes into them until it crumbled. A beast with 6 arms and poison claws. Let it poison him, then used the time before the poison took hold to tear out its throat. He spent 3 hours afterward in medical recovery. A master assassin from a shadow world, fought in total darkness, using sound and smell to track his enemy. He won by playing dead until the assassin came close enough to kill. Each fight took something from him, a piece of his body, a piece of his soul. By round 6, he could barely stand. His left arm hung useless from a dislocated shoulder. 3 ribs were cracked. 1 eye was swollen shut. He had lost enough blood that the medical teams didn't understand how he was still alive. Crown Prince watched from the royal box. He had stopped eating. He had stopped speaking. He simply watched, his 4 eyes never leaving the arena. He should be dead, his advisor whispered. No creature should survive this much damage. He should be many things, replied quietly, but he refuses to be any of them. The 6th round opponent they were the most feared warriors in the Empire. They came from a death world where everything was trying to kill everything else at all times. They had evolved beyond pain, beyond fear, beyond any weakness. They looked at and saw a broken thing, easy prey. It charged. Couldn't win this fight, he knew that. His body had nothing left to give. It was stronger, faster, fresher. The math was simple. So change the math. He didn't try to win, he tried to survive. He dodged when he could. He took hits when he couldn't dodge. He let them beat him across the arena, never fighting back, always just barely staying alive. They grew frustrated, then angry, then careless. And when it finally made a mistake, overextending on a killing blow, used the last of his strength to drive a broken piece of his own armor into the creature's eye and up into its brain. They both collapsed, only got back up. The crowd was no longer cheering. They were something beyond cheering. The sound they made was almost religious. One more round, one more fight. Stood in the center of the arena, swaying, barely conscious. Blood covered every inch of his body. His breathing was shallow and wet. Crown Prince stood from his throne. Enough, his advisors begged. This has gone far enough. End it now while you can still claim the wager. But wasn't listening. He was staring at with an expression no one had ever seen on his face before. Send in the 7th opponent, he commanded. The gates opened. The creature that walked out was, not just any, a prince. Own cousin, Lord N, the greatest warrior their people had produced in 1,000 years. Lord N looked at and laughed. This is the creature that has terrified the Empire, this broken, bleeding thing. Said nothing, he simply raised his hands. The fight lasted 43 minutes. It should have lasted seconds. Lord N had every advantage. Size, strength, speed, fresh body, superior weapons, training since birth, evolution's gifts. Had nothing but refusal. Every time he was knocked down, he got back up. Every time his body told him to stop, he kept going. He fought with broken fingers and shattered bones. He fought blind when the blood in his eyes blocked his vision. He fought deaf when the blows to his head took his hearing. He fought like something that had forgotten how to die. In the 38th minute, landed a blow that cracked Lord N's chest armor. In the 41st minute, he widened that crack with his bare hands. In the 43rd minute, he reached into the prince's chest and stopped his heart. Lord N fell, stood over him, swaying like a tree in a storm. He looked up at Crown Prince. "We call this a Pyrrhic victory where I come from," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "It means you win even though you lose everything." He smiled, blood staining his teeth. "It's a very human concept." Then Cole collapsed. The arena was silent for a long, long time. Then began to clap. One by one, the millions of spectators joined him. The sound of applause echoed across the stars, woke up slowly like rising from deep water. The first thing he noticed was that nothing hurt. After weeks of constant pain, the absence of it was almost disturbing. He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling made of something that looked like liquid light. He was in a bed softer than anything he had ever felt. Medical machines hummed quietly around him, monitoring his body with technology that seemed like magic. Through a window, he could see stars. He was alive. That fact took a moment to fully register. He had been so certain of his death, had accepted it so completely. And yet here he was, breathing, thinking, existing. "You have been unconscious for 12 rotations." Turned his head, Crown Prince sat in a chair beside his bed. The prince looked different somehow. Smaller maybe, less intimidating, or perhaps was just seeing him differently now. "The medical teams did not believe you would survive," continued. "Your body had suffered damage that should have been fatal several times over. Your organs were failing. Your brain was swelling. By every measurement we have, you were dead." "But I'm not." "No, you are not," leaned forward. "The chief medical officer said something interesting. He said that your body seemed to reject death, that every time a system failed, another system would compensate, that your cells were fighting to survive with a desperation he had never seen in any species." "Thought about that. It sounded about right." "Since your victory, I have studied your species' history," said. "I needed to understand what I witnessed. I had my scholars gather every piece of information about humanity they could find." "And what did you learn?" The prince stood and walked to the window. He stared out at the stars for a long moment before speaking. "Your species has nearly destroyed itself 17 times, plagues that killed half your population, wars that burned entire continents. You poisoned your own air and water and soil. You created weapons capable of ending all life on your world, then pointed those weapons at each other, turned to face. By every measurement, you should be extinct. We're stubborn." "It is more than stubbornness. The Rani were stubborn. They are gone now, destroyed by a plague they could not adapt to. They were stubborn. They are gone, killed by a war they could not end. Stubbornness is not enough. Your species has something else, something I do not fully understand." Pushed himself up in the bed. His body felt strange, strong almost, as if the alien medicine had repaired more than just his injuries. "We have hope," he said simply. "Hope. Hope, the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. That suffering has a purpose. That death is not the end, but just another obstacle to overcome." Swung his legs over the side of the bed. "Other species evolved to survive their environment. We evolved to refuse ours. Every time the universe tried to kill us, we decided that the universe was wrong." Was quiet for a long moment. "I have ruled the pit for 40 cycles," he finally said. "I have watched thousands of creatures fight and die. I thought I understood strength. I thought I understood survival. I was wrong." He walked toward and stopped just a few feet away. "You fight like a dying star, human. You burn everything around you. You consume yourself in the process. You shine so brightly that it hurts to watch. And somehow, impossibly, you keep shining even when all your fuel should be gone." Stood, he was almost the same height as the prince now. Those natural armor and bone crown still made him appear larger. The tributes said, "You promised." "Yes, I did," gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed ships, thousands of ships. "The human tributes are being transported back to your world as we speak. All 10,000, unharmed. They will arrive within 20 rotations." Relief flooded through. David, Sarah, the old man, all of them going home. "Thank you," he said. "Do not thank me. This is not generosity. This is wisdom," dismissed the display with a wave. "I have thought carefully about what to do with your species. My advisors wanted to conquer you completely, break your world. Scatter your people across the empire as slaves. Ensure you could never become a threat. And what did you decide? Walked back to the window. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. My ancestors built this empire because they understood one simple truth. Some battles are not worth fighting. Some enemies are not worth making. He turned to face. A species that refuses to die, that has practiced surviving the unsurvivable for its entire existence, that looks at extinction and treats it as a personal insult. He shook his head slowly. Such a species cannot be conquered, not truly. You would resist until the last human drew their final breath. And then your children would resist, and their children, forever. So what happens now? Reached into his robes and pulled out a small device. He pressed it and the holographic display changed. It showed Earth now, blue and green and white spinning slowly in the darkness. Earth will be reclassified as a protected world under the royal decree. No ship will enter your system without permission. No tribute will ever be demanded again. Your species will be left to develop on its own in peace. Stared at the image of his home. He hadn't expected this. He had expected death. He had hoped for survival. He had never imagined freedom. Why, he asked. You could still take us, still use us. Why let us go? Smiled. It was almost a friendly expression. Because my empire has ruled for 10,000 years by knowing which stars to conquer and which to avoid. A young star is bright but predictable. A stable star is useful but boring. He looked at with something that might have been respect. A dying star is none of these things. A dying star is chaos and fire and destruction. It burns itself alive just to keep shining. And when it finally explodes, it destroys everything around it. He stepped closer to. Your species is a dying star, human. You have been dying since the moment you evolved. Every generation should have been your last. And yet you keep burning, you keep shining, you refuse to fade. His 4 eyes met too. We do not conquer dying stars. We do not enslave them. We give them wide berth and pray they burn out before they reach us. Felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. They won't, he said quietly. Burn out, I mean we really won't. Nodded slowly. I know, and that is why I am releasing you. That is why I am protecting your world, not out of kindness, out of survival. He walked toward the door, then paused. You asked me once why I made this wager, why I risked so much just to understand your species. He looked back at one last time. I have my answer now. Humans are not the strongest species, not the fastest, but you may be the most dangerous, because you do not know when to stop. You do not understand when you are beaten. You treat death as a temporary inconvenience. He opened the door. Go home, Cole, live your life, tell your people what you have seen and done. And remember this, the galaxy is watching now. It knows what you are capable of. His smile faded. Make sure it never has reason to fear you. The door closed behind him. Stood alone in the medical chamber, looking at the holographic image of Earth. His home. The home of a species that had survived everything the universe had thrown at it. He thought about David and his baby, about Sarah and her dreams, about the old man who had needed help standing up. He thought about every human who had ever lived and died, and struggled and hoped. We're coming home, he whispered to the image of Earth. All of us. 3 weeks later, stepped off the transport ship onto Earth soil. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A crowd had gathered. They were cheering, crying, calling his name. News cameras floated everywhere. But wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at a young man with tears in his eyes, holding a baby in his arms. David, alive, safe, with his child. David walked toward him slowly. He stopped just a few feet away. I don't know what to say, David whispered. You saved all of us, you saved everyone. Looked at the baby, a little girl. She was sleeping peacefully, unaware of everything that had happened. What's her name? Asked. David smiled. Hope, we named her Hope. Felt tears on his face. He hadn't cried in years, hadn't let himself feel enough to cry. But now, standing on under his own son, looking at a child who existed because he had refused to give up, he let the tears come. That's a good name, he said softly. That's a very good name. Somewhere far away, in a palace among the stars, Crown Prince watched the broadcast of his return. He watched the human cry. He watched the crowd celebrate. He watched a species that should have been conquered celebrate their freedom instead. His advisor stood beside him. Do you regret your decision, Your Highness? Thought about the question for a long time. No, he finally said. I made the right choice. Humans are not a species to be conquered. They are a species to be respected, and perhaps in time feared. He turned off the broadcast. Let them have their world. Let them have their future. And let us hope that when they finally reach for the stars themselves, they remember that we chose peace. The advisor bowed and left, stood alone in his chambers, looking out at the galaxy his ancestors had built. Somewhere out there, a dying star burned bright. And it was only just beginning. The end.